Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to PCM21 Career Mode episode 116. Before we begin Omloop het Nieuwsblad and get our classics portion of the season underway, we're going to take a nice look back at the entirety of the teams and their progression through this series so far. It's now 2027. Of course, gameplay started in the year 2021, so a lot of the teams have a couple of years of additional history prior to that. AG2R, even though being rated quite low in 2019, accumulated 66 wins, finishing 12th. 2020, they finished 14th. Then in the game, even though the team was better, they started to underperform. Average age got a little bit higher. They added one additional victory but finished 19th. A year later, 22nd, despite being World Tour. Then 20th, despite being World Tour. There's only 19 World Tour teams. Their victories had slipped below 10 for the first time in 2022. 2024, they hit 5 stars, and they've been there ever since. Average age has been hovering around 28 for a number of years now. And again, this last year, they were outside of the top 19. Not great from AG2R. Also, this year, back below 5 stars for the first time at 4.5. Expect this team to struggle a little bit. Good in classics, though. Good in time trials. And some quality punchers. Cofidis, 4.5 stars right now. They've been hovering near 5 stars the last couple of years. They opened as a Continental Pro 2019, but they've been World Tour since. In real life as well. Not a lot of victories, but yet somehow over the last 2 years, they have managed to finish in the top 10 in the rankings. And actually above 20 wins for the first time these last 2 years. Can they continue with that? You can see what their strengths are here. Delco, very much a sprint team. No prehistory, but in 2021, Continental Pro for 3 years, and then they have yo-yoed since, but now for the first time, they have retained World Tour status. Last year, making it just ahead of a handful of teams, barely qualifying, and all the way down in 26th in the rankings. This year, again, barely making World Tour status, but they did have 31 victories a year ago. Kind of quick step, very balanced, very strong, incredibly good classics team, incredibly good time trialing team, and no weaknesses. 5 stars every season, and they have been no worse than 4th in all these years, finishing first just once though, a couple seasons ago. But their victories have been numerous, 60 plus every year except last, and yet they were still second in the ranking. EF Education, not terribly weak anywhere, but not terribly strong either. Pretty good in the sprint, just 24 riders on the team, not making World Tour by much, at just a hair under 4.5 stars. They were 5 stars a year ago, and they had slowly gotten just a little bit stronger year after year after year until this year, taking a step backwards. Highest finish has been 9th. Last year, despite finishing 15th, they had their most victories. Groupama, little more well-balanced. GC, their strong suit, nearly 5 stars, and they've been right there each and every year. Despite that, they are consistently just either 5th or 6th in the rankings every year, somewhere right around 30 wins. NEOS have spent 3 years on top of the standings. They've been 5 stars throughout. They've maintained 31 or 32 riders. 41 victories a year ago was their minimum, but otherwise they've been getting about 60 a year. Podium all but 1 year, only that one 4th place finish. Definitely not a sprint team, but so strong everywhere else. Israel Startup, almost a surprise that this is a team that has maintained World Tour status, especially when they are barely making 4 stars. And yet, looking at this, they've been 4.25 or better every year besides this year. They were nearly 5 stars a couple of years ago, and that was also their highest finish. Their only top 10, which was 7th place. Not a lot of victories for the team. Again, quite surprised that this team has managed to retain World Tour status each and every season. Looking at this profile, they're not that good. they'll get some classics wins that'll accumulate a bulk of the wins they get this year. Manuela Fundación, it's Team Bike Exchange with a new sponsor this year, new look. Liking the pink on that one. They are not good in GC, but they are pretty dang solid everywhere else. They had only been as high as 10th until last season, where they got all the way up to 4th. It was also their first time at 5 stars this year. They're back down to shy of 5 stars, but at 4 3/4. Expect them to challenge pretty consistently in a number of disciplines. RTL, formerly Bora Hansgrohe. I've spent a few years as RTL. They were led by Egan Bernal the last couple of years. I don't know about now, but they have been top 6 each and every year, but only a single year making it on the podium. And following 3 straight years with 5 stars, they have slipped down to 4.5. Rally. Yes, it is that Rally Cycling. They did not switch sponsors and then pick up somebody new. This is the same Rally Cycling that was a 3-star, barely qualifying for Continental Pro status at 5 years after Continental Pro, and just slowly getting a little bit better each and every year. These last 2 years now, they are a World Tour team, and they continue to get better. They went from 4.5 stars a year ago to 4 3/4 this year. 23rd in the rankings last year. They've slowly climbed up. That was their best finish. They doubled essentially their wins from the year before, and they are a dominant sprint team. Santander, formerly Movistar, after 6 years and many years prior to that in real life, Movistar have left the building and they have been replaced by Santander, the red and white jersey now, and they took a big step back with this new sponsor. They're still a strong GC team, they're still a strong punchy team, but they lack firepower otherwise, and they have gone from 7th, 8th, 9th those first few years to pretty much on the outside of the top 10, with their highest finish over the last few years being just 10th place. DSM, surprised that they held World Tour status. They have no weaknesses, but they have no strengths. Just 14 wins a year ago after 40 the year before, but yet somehow maintaining the same position in the standings, 8th, 9th, 8th, and 8th over the last 4 years. And they've hovered right around 4.5 stars each and every year. This year is their lowest ranking, though, and they are on the verge of relegation. And Jumbo-Visma, no such situation for them, but it does look like Jumbo-Visma has buried themselves, absolutely buried themselves. This is not the same Jumbo-Visma that we've seen in years past, the totally dominant 5-star force. Here's how they've buried themselves. Look at the number of riders: 27, 25, 25, 21, 20, 14, both last year and this year. Their age also steadily increasing, and this is what happens when you retain, what is he, like 38, 39-year-old Primoz Roglic. They are just getting older and older and older. And in 2023, they were first in the rankings with 58 victories, 44 a year before, also in first that year. They've never finished below 7th, but the number of victories has declined steadily. 58, 21, 18, 12. How much can they get this year as their steady decline has taken a big step backwards? And with just 14 riders, you would think they're going to be in a world of hurt. Those riders are going to be suffering some pretty heavy fatigue. Quebec Aesos dropped to Continental Pro in real life, and they have bounced back. This is their second season back in World Tour status, but they were just 20th a year ago after being 13th as a Continental Pro team with 21 wins. So they were still pretty dang good. Now they're somehow better, yet worse. But of course, that is the entire database rising. The entire database has gotten better and better and better, as it does year and year and year. This game does not balance quality very well, and you get better and better riders coming through and not dropping off and retiring, and so you end up with too much talent, too much quality, which is why you have a Karaman who's rated so highly and yet is so weak compared to much of the field. Total Direct Energy from 4 stars up to a 4.5 right away the next year, building to a 5-star program, but back down to 4.5 this year. So we've seen a number of teams take a step backwards. Highest finish 10th place, but they were back down to 19th last year, and they are weaker this year. So what will that do? I would think they'll bounce back a little bit. Based on this profile, outside of time trialing, and even then that's not a weakness, they look pretty strong, pretty capable. Trek, GC team, just 27 riders, barely making 4 stars. They look to be in trouble. They've been consistently mid-pack for a number of years. Their worst finish was 17th, but otherwise they've been 8th to 12th every other year. Not getting a ton of wins, but fairly good. This year's team, though, looks to be in a bit of trouble because even their GC doesn't look to be that great. And of course, there's a ton of teams that are really good in GC. And as that's one of my strengths, that's going to put Trek that much more on their back foot. And finally, UAE, GC, punchiness, time trialing, but weak otherwise, but they're still strong. And of course, they are still led by their same top leader. No championships as a team. Piastri might have won plenty of titles individually, but as a team, second, fourth, third, second, third. Only one time missing the podium, and you would suspect they'll be right there again this year, but they aren't at 5 stars anymore. So maybe a little step backwards, but is that just sprint and cobble ratings? Or are they still that dominant on top? And here is a look at our history. Beginning as a Continental team with 15 riders and an average age of 24, you can see we are much younger than everybody else. We are a good 4 to 5 years younger than all the other teams, and that is one of our strengths. That is one thing that has really carried us along the way. 8 victories in our opening season, and we were 32nd in the Super Prestige. A year later, still Continental, increasing to 21 riders, getting younger. We had some more talent, but the development came a little bit later. 16 victories, so we double our total. But we were actually still identical in terms of the rankings, but that's mostly down to just riding Continental. Finally, entering Continental Pro that next season, and look at that solid jump. We gained a star each year, or at least almost a star, 8 to 9/10 anyway. And we jumped to 30 riders, the most we've had, and that was a lot of experiments. And that was where we picked up a lot of our key guys, because we went out there, we went on a limb, we took some bold chances on a lot of young talent. Some of it worked out, some of it didn't, but some of it worked out really, really well. But it was a bunch of rookies. We were riding with a bunch of rookies, and we pushed ourselves up to 28th, but we added 5 more wins than the year before. Then that talent began to develop. We were still Continental Pro. We were that little bit better. We weren't World Tour. I don't know why they're saying we were World Tour last year. We were Continental Pro. That's an odd one. Anyway, we spent 4 years as Continental Pro. 23 riders. And by the end of the year, our ranking went up a lot. And it wasn't enough. I mean, you're looking right now at teams, 4 1/4 being World Tour. And yet, this is showing that we were even better than that. I don't know. Something's off about that evaluation compared to what we have here. So we saw a lot of teams decline. And look how weak we are compared to the others. Looking at our matrix, we are nowhere near these other World Tour teams. We don't have any great strengths. GC might be our main thing, but we are so far off. Trek makes us look really weak. And Trek is totally on the outside of the top 10. So that says a lot about what we've been able to do with how little we actually have. But after finishing 7th a couple of years ago with Berlikov leading the way, yes, we only had 21 wins, but we did things where it counted, where it mattered. We were 10th the year before. We slipped to 16th last year, rebounding. That hurt. We had more wins, but that was sprint wins. That was individual stages and not GC stuff, where the year before it was mostly GC stuff. Let's see if we can spread the love a little bit this year, see if we can get back up, maybe set a new record now that we actually are World Tour for this season. Okay, so Omloop Het Nieuwsblad is underway, and this is our great weakness. It's classics. Now, of course, we've talked about this extensively, but it's been a long time since we've talked about it. So let me refresh your memory on why classics are such a great problem for us. If you know the sport, which not everybody knows the sport terribly well, but if you know the sport, there are 2 regions that are one larger region, realistically, and provide for probably 95% of the talent in the discipline, as in riders capable on cobbles. There are exceptions. Peter Sagan, right? Great exception on that one. But he's a fantastic bike handler, and that's what's made him that. And he's not necessarily the best classics rider anyway. But 2 prime examples, Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, the upper lowlands of Europe, the northern lowlands, your Holland, your Belgium, your northern France, some of the Danish riders, they tend to be the great classics riders. And it's a regional thing. It's because the regions are largely cobbled, much more so than other regions are. You grow up on the cobbles, you learn to ride the cobbles. You watch your national heroes compete as strong cobbled riders, and you aspire to be like them. And so you see another generation following the previous generation and being great cobbled riders. Let me throw you one quick example of how that works as an American growing up. I know that he is the scapegoat that will be hated more than any other rider in the history of the sport. But no one, clean or not, no one has won as many Tour de France's, even if he was stricken from the records. Lance Armstrong won the Tour de France 7 times. He put that jersey on. It happened. That part's fact. What happened after? What happened after his career? Being the a-hole that he is and was, and being blamed for an entire era of doping where you could probably count on 2 hands the number of riders that were clean in the entire sport. Not in any given peloton, in the entire sport. They were all dirty. And it was all done uniformly, team by team by team by team. So he was not unique in any way. He was doping, they were doping, he beat them. But anyway, growing up in that, I'm a fan of the sport because of Lance Armstrong. Regardless of what happened post-career for him, as an American, he was my inspiration into the sport. Certainly at the time. And rightfully so. As a stage racer, as a Grand Tour rider, as the Tour de France was the only race that we even had any coverage of in the United States. Oh, of course, that's the only thing that I even knew. Before we get in here, we need to get water. So let's pause real quick here and send Sakaguchi back to get that. So, naturally so, Americans have been more set for that. And so the Americans that come through the sport, so many of them reside in like Colorado as a great example, or in the Pacific Northwest like myself, where there are lots of mountains, lots of climbing to do. So we tend to have decent climbers, and we don't have cobbled riders. Anyway, point being of all of this discussion here, so we can focus on the race at hand here shortly enough. There's Galvez. Okay, returning to position. We're good. We do need to step things up here shortly, but this one does not phase me. This is an easy section to get through. Point being about...
Yet another flat tire. It seems to be catching.
Galvez, our highest cobble rated rider, and he's okay. He is okay, and Hamadovich has come to protect him. We might help him traverse the field here a little bit, up his effort a little bit so we can get up a little sooner. That's over the climb. It's going to be easy sailing from here, but you can see how the field is stretched and already thin. We're down to 117 in the Peloton, and he is very much not back yet. Let's go up to 80 on the effort so he can make his way back up before he is separated. You can see a lot of riders going backwards quickly. Small sector, but there's another one immediately after, and he's made his way through a lot of riders through that bit. Anyway, you do what you know. And being that we are on a restricted pool, I can't sign Dutch riders. I can't sign Belgian riders. So the majority of the best classics riders in the world don't reside in these nations. And all these nations don't have a pedigree for classics. And so finding any classics riders outside of, 50s or 60s in their ratings has been incredibly difficult. We now have literally all of the talent in classics. Despite having all of the talent available in classics, we're still not good at it. Galvez, highest rated, 78 cobble, but not strong anywhere else. He's just balanced. He's just got some okay talent. Akira, 75. Berggren, 75. Hamadovich, 74. In support, Killinch, 71. A 70 for Sekiguchi, and Markovic just a 68 for the base of these guys. But here's the thing. I came prepared for this early classic. All 7 riders, all of them are on an objective, and I believe 3 are on a fitness peak. Our expected... Oh, that collects 2 of our guys as we come around the corner and get picked up by somebody who is already down. Gerasimenko from the break has wiped out Wakira and Berggren, and we need to work hard to get forward quick. We are picked up by 16 riders, and let's make our way back forward. While Hamadovich has eased off, Markovic is slipping back, and we are getting into the difficult bits here. It is time we do something. Wakira and Berggren... 70. Okay, Wakira, you're already at the back end. Get water. Berggren, work harder. Galvez already punctured, and now he has crashed. The weather has reigned supreme. There is Galvez. Here is Wakira, who isn't even trying to make his way back forward. Galvez has gotten up without getting dropped by the group, except the group split. Let's not go... I roll it up and he goes backwards. Akira, give it an 85. Let's see what you can do. Let's see what these two can do. Berggren, I want you to protect Galvez. And I want you to increase your effort and work your way forward. Sakaguchi. I want you to wait for Galvez. And these guys got split off too. 7 riders chasing. No, now it's 34 at the front. Okay. Get these two back in position. Sakaguchi waiting for these guys. And Wakira's done. Okay, let Wakira go. These guys are not. This is actually already back together. Let's take these 3. Sakaguchi's going to put the work in right now. Let's follow Sakaguchi. Galvez, it's 41k to go. Yes, I need water, but, you know, this field's just going to keep splitting. We will get water eventually. Sakaguchi, begin that chase. Berggren.
There's a breakaway in the leading group.
You were right on his wheel. And now look at this. Okay. Go. Wait for this rider.
Falling behind. A team leader is falling behind.
Okay, Galvez is locked in on Berggren's wheel. Sakaguchi is supposed to be waiting, and yet he's not waiting. Well, he is, but he's not actually slowing down. There you go. Okay. And Wakira has caught up. Okay, we'll get Wakira second in line and have these guys make our way forward. Wakira, come on, find a gap. And Sakaguchi's going at a 91, so we will get Wakira to the front as there's another crash. Luckily, this time we miss out.
Holy cow, that was a fall.
You see in those big splits. We want to get these guys back up towards that Peloton. Finally, back into position here, Wakira.
The sides of the road are not a tire's best friend.
Dumont. Okay, Sakaguchi trying to bring us up through the field. This essentially is the Peloton with 87 riders. And Sakaguchi still leading, so Wakira still has to close the gap a little bit.
Aha! He's trying to give his pals the slip.
Not worried about the red bar here at the moment. We have got to get back in contention. There's only 31k to go. Okay. We're going to run a quick swap here. Gel up for Wakira, and Wakira go ahead and bury himself as we make our way. We got a lot of guys going backwards. That's the Peloton right there. This group is almost in contact. Wakira is done. Back to, do I want to go to Berggren first? Sakaguchi is looking pretty dang good. Gel up for Berggren. Wakira, just try to break toe behind us real quick because I'd love to leave. The group just split. So now it's just 23 riders. I'm not towing 90 riders back into contention here.
There's an attack in the leading group. Some riders were not giving it their
Gel
all
for
and sharing the
Sakaguchi. He's
pace.
going to take over in just a moment. Berggren. Okay, he's done. On to Sakaguchi. Quick short section there. 21 riders. Kilinch is hanging on at the front. Hamadovich is hanging on. Markovic is there and looking good with a +5. Berggren, try to hang on to the back end of this as long as you can. And Sakaguchi is going to just sit on for a second because we're down to just Galvez now. He should be hanging on. He's not totally out of energy here, just low. Back up into a decent position. These guys are accelerating. This is about to split this group. Galvez just comfortably hanging on here. And these guys are almost in contact. A crash and a puncture for Galvez, and now I need to be attacking through here, but I can't find space. I finally do, and he's going to make contact here very quickly.
Really treacherous. Those guys up front aren't going to be making too many friends today.
Alright, no more sprint. We have Markovic, we have Kilinch. Kilinch is protecting Markovic. Galvez needs to ride forward and bring Markovic along because Killinch is about to fade. And we need to get Markovic through this. If we can, Markovic could win the sprint. Amadovic also just up ahead. He is hanging on. Let's get him his gel. And Galvez needs to lead Markovic along. Pull him forward before we get split off. We have been split off, at least at the moment. We're seeing multiple groups. Amadovic hanging on a little bit up ahead. I'm going to take a second. Get all of these guys onto auto. Do their thing to the rest of the race. And there you go. 2 chasing 1 right here. This will be 16 chasers. Okay, Galvez is done. Amadovic. Wait for this rider. And this rider. Continue on. Okay, there you go. Follow Amadovic. This is the last climb. And then we will be set to make whatever pursuit we can. We're not far from the front of the field. But there's a few guys that just escaped a little bit. And Hamadovic can only chase so hard. It's a group of 9. Where we're at in the mix up ahead, there's at least 5 riders clear of us. It's coming back together a little bit. Now we're looking at 9 riders plus whatever's at the front. It looks like maybe 3. I see 3, I see 1, I see 2, I see... Yes. So there's 3 at the front, so that's the top 12. Means we are battling for 13th right now. I would love to get us into the top 10. Markovic could absolutely beat this group, but can we beat those 5, 7 riders up ahead of us? Can we get back in contact with them? That would be the big ask. 4K to go. And here comes the win. Muskan, Bryce, Van Aert. Van Aert only gets 3rd. He does not get the win. 2K to go. Amadovic, give me your tiny, tiny little lead out here. There you go. And Markovic, early sprint. Should leave these guys behind. But if we have any chance of catching that front group, it's got to come from a long ways out. And he is going to easily beat this group. And yes, as I predicted, it's 13th we were riding for. It's 13th we got. So close to a top 10 for a discipline that is not ours. And Markovic was my weakest rider here. But he had a +5. That is a capable sprinter. And we saw him outsprint that group of 9 quite comfortably. But if that was Galvez with a +5 and, you know, without a puncture and a crash along the way, if you had gelled those 2 riders together, Galvez and Markovic, we would have been in this thing. We might have been fighting for that sprint at the end with Muskan, Bryce, and Van Aert, but not to be. For us, though, for this type of race, we haven't been getting top 25s at all. We've been generally outside of the top 50, and a good day has been top 40. So 13th, so a step in the right direction. It's still not a top 10. Alright folks, well that's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Oh, overtaken just on the line. That was Van Aert going clear and fading at the end. He faded from 1st to 3rd in the last 25 meters. Ouch. See you later.